Hello, welcome back. My name is Ari. It's Monday, November 9th, and this starts week 2 of me freaking attempting to read 20 fantasy books for the Goodreads Choice Awards. So, quick recap from last week's vlog. I left off with things. I left off with 7 books complete out of the initial 15. I'll go over the books and everything here in a minute. I don't want to do like a huge recap because I'm about to tell you I finished another book, so there's no point in recapping 7, telling you I finished an 8th, and then recapping the order for the 8th. It just doesn't make any sense. So, I was thinking about waiting to do this vlog until the semifinals announce, which I think announces tomorrow, the 10th. I could be completely wrong about that, but I think it announces tomorrow, and that's when we get to the 20 choices, which hopefully I've read some of the 5 that they add on. I honestly don't know if I will have or not, but I did, like I just said, finish another book. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about, in this clip, what I finished, start a new book, and then the next clip we can talk about whatever the F I'm adding on. This camera's really heavy, so we're going with the like extra chins angle. Anyway, the book that I finished was what was it called? A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. And I went into this book knowing that some people felt that it was extremely racist and extremely problematic. I've seen like the Reddit post or the Twitter thread. That's what it was. It was a Twitter thread where a woman broke down like every racist thing that she could find in the book. Contrary to that, I have also seen a Reddit thread where somebody contradicted like all of these racist statements and explained why they are not racist. And the both of the people who did this breakdown are people of color, because obviously I'm not going to be able to tell you what's racist or not because I'm white. What would I know? So I'm gonna kind of give you like a little bit of breakdown of that. So one of the first things was a scene about dreadlocks, and this seems to be the most like controversial thing in context of the book. Like if you read that scene in the context of the greater book, it's not like, you can easily tell that it's not meant to come off as racist. The situation that they're in this school is they can't really go anywhere alone. And it's dangerous to do anything like shower or like bathe or whatever unless you have somebody to watch your back, and even then it's not really a guarantee of safety. So these kids, especially the ones that have fewer friends, don't tend to be able to bathe on a regular basis. And the creatures that can kill you in this school can get into anything. And if you don't bathe or are unable to like brush your hair on a regular basis, it'll start matting up and dreading. And one of the girls is talking about she should cut her hair or shave her hair or cut her hair off because it is matted up and she's having a hard time brushing it out, and it's taking like a considerable amount of time to brush her hair. And that's where it goes into a scene about the creatures that live in dreadlocks, which for women of color or people of color whose like, culture is to dread their hair, it could be seen as implying that dreadlocks are filthy. But the girl in this particular scene talking about it is an Asian girl. And she's more talking about, like, her hair matting. So it is insensitive, but it is not, like, a direct, purposeful attack. And Naomi Novik did apologize for this and said that she would be removing it from future prints of the book. Everything else in here, it's not up to me whether to judge it's bullshit or not. I think a lot of it has been explained by other people of color much better than I'm ever going to be able to do. Why the first woman's assumptions were extreme, and her remarks were much more prejudiced than anything that the book was going for. It also seems like that woman did not care for the book at all, and so she was going out of her way, as one does when somebody doesn't like a book. Like, I do this all the time when I'm hate reading a book, to, like, find things that she has a problem with or had a problem with and, like, nitpick. Which is fine. It's just the actual point of, is Naomi Novik, why is her name so hard to say? Is she racist? Should we not read this book or support this author because of her racism? I'm going to say no on this one. There are a lot of people out there who are far more purposefully racist than to boycott a woman who has microaggressions and she is willing to apologize and learn from her microaggressions and make herself a better person. Because we're all going to say things that we don't realize are problematic or racist, and if we're just, like, canceled or whatever, when we're trying to learn, then nothing's ever going to get accomplished. So that's my take on that. That was a really long take, much longer than I planned it to be. Anyway, the book itself I loved. That was 4 stars. That was so much fun. It's very character driven and very based off of lore building. So if you don't like the character, because everything is very clearly from her snarky point of view, you are not gonna like that book. And if you don't like world building of magical worlds, you're not gonna like this book, because there's so much world building. I love world building, and I like bitchy, snarky female characters, so I very, very much enjoyed it. But a lot of people are not gonna like this book. So, there's that. And so, rankings. We're still putting House of Earth and Blood at number 1. That hasn't been knocked out of number 1 yet, which I'm surprised. Like, I knew reading that I would probably enjoy it, but I thought it would be like 4 or 5. I never thought it would stay number 1 this whole time, even though I read it in, like, June or something. And it's not my favorite book of the year so far, but out of the 8 that I've read so far, still number 1. Number 2 is going to stay with The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I very, very much enjoyed that. Deadly Education is taking over at number 3. That's how good that was. I was shocked. Like, really, really shocked. Then we rounded out with the same old House of the Cerulean Sea at number 4, Poppy War at number 5, The City of Brass at number 6, Black Sun at 7, and The City We Became at number 8. So next up, I am reading Piranesi by Suzanna Clark. I don't really super know what this book is about. I know it's a Greek myth retelling, but I don't know really anything about this Greek myth. I don't even know that I would have picked this up and ever read it were it not for the Goodreads Choice Awards, which I could say about a lot of these books, and so far I've been doing really, really good. Hello, I'm back, and the 5 new books, the write-in votes for Goodreads Choice Awards came out, and I've seen the first one, and this is interesting. So, the first book on, because it changes orders every time, so the first book on my list is Battleground, which is number 17 in the Dresden Files. Now, number 16 in the Dresden Files is also on this list. That means there are 2 Dresden books fighting against each other for the best Jim Butcher book of 2020 from the same series, and it's 2 books. So because the votes are going to be split between those 2 books, I almost guarantee that neither one of those will be in the top 10, because, like, first off, they're like 16 and 17 in the series. Like, if you're not already a fan of that series, there's no way you're going to read that and catch up. And then to, like, split even that already small vote between those 2 books, not happening. The next one is The Trouble with Peace, which is the Age of Madness Book 2 by Joe Abercrombie. I don't even remember when the last time I read a book by Joe Abercrombie was. So it looks like I'm going to read whatever the hell the Age of Madness Book 1 is by Joe Abercrombie. The next one is one that I thought was going to be on here already, and I was surprised that it wasn't, which is Smoke Bitten, which is Mercy Thompson book 12. So, I have read Mercy Thompson book 1, but it's probably been 10 years, so I'm going to go ahead and reread that book for that specific one, even though it's not going to make it to the top 10, so that's going to be low on my priority list. Next is Age of Empire, which is Legends of the First Empire, book 6. I have no idea what that is about at all. Never heard of it. It's by Michael J. Sullivan. His name sounds familiar, but I don't know what that is. I will probably know what it is once I, like, get into it. And then the last new edition is a book called Winter Steel by Will White. And it looks like a standalone, and I've never heard of it. But sure, I've never heard of this author, never heard of this book, but shit, we're gonna read it. We're gonna add it to my list. So yeah, that's what's new so far. 5 more to go. I only have to add, I guess, 4 more books, because it doesn't make any sense for me to read more than book 1 of the Dresden Files for this, personally. I don't know. I guess if I really, really, really love book 1, then I could read book 2. But I don't like book 1 so far. I'm like halfway through with it. So yeah. Adding 4 more books. We'll see where it goes. Hello, it's Friday the 13th. I am breaking out like I'm going through puberty again. And I have done a truly, truly atrocious job of updating you all week long. So I finished 3 books since the last time I talked to you, and we're just gonna go over all 3 of them right now. The first one is Piranesi by Suzanna Clark. This is weird. I think I'm gonna say that a lot in this clip. This is basically, I guess it's a Greek retelling, a Greek myth retelling of the labyrinth myth, but it's not really like a minotaur in a myth or in a labyrinth or anything like that. This is set in modern times, and Piranesi, who is the main character, is in a house. He calls it a house with never-ending rooms, and each room is filled with statues, and all of the statues are different. There's no two statues that are the same. And the ocean is also trapped in the house with him. There is one other man in existence known as the Other, and the Other visits Piranesi twice a week. Now, if you are a fan of, Italian classical history, which I feel like probably most people aren't, you might know that Piranesi is a famous classical artist who drew mostly pictures of prisons, and that kind of hints at maybe what this is about. But it's told in a series of journal entries made by Piranesi himself, and it's weird. And I can't really go more into it other than what I just told you, other than it's weird. I thought it was okay, but I'm not particularly into Greek myths or Italian artists, so I wasn't like in love with the story like a lot of people seem to be, but there wasn't anything really wrong with the story either. It was just mediocre in my personal opinion. As far as that goes in my ranking system, I am putting it in 7th place. The next book that I read was The Empress of Salt and Fortune. I don't remember who the author's name is off the top of my head. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna put the book right there. There'll be a picture of it. I knew going into this that I probably wouldn't like it. I don't like books based off of Asian mythology and told in that particular style of storytelling where it's a story within a story within a story. Is not my favorite, and I also don't like the fable-like telling way that a lot of those stories done, including this, where it's like each story has like a lesson or like an explanation. It's just not my personal favorite type of storytelling. A lot of people really like it. It just doesn't do it for me. This is a novella. It's super, super short. I read it in just a couple hours, and basically a young person, non-binary person, goes by the them, they pronouns, is collecting history, and they are traveling to a coronation, I believe, and they stop on the way and visit an older woman, and it may be in an inn, but it may not be. I was kind of confused on that point. But as part of staying with the old woman, they help the old woman clean her house or her inn. And as they find different items, the old woman explains like the story behind each one of those items, and then you get the tale of the previous empress who has just passed away. So it was weird. I didn't like it. I struggled to understand it. The representation was really good. There was obviously the non-binary character, and then there was a sapphic relationship in there. All of that was pretty interesting. I do have to say that reading for 30 plus years and they, them being a plural pronoun, every time that I would read it in context of the story, it would like make me pause for a second, and then I would have to realize like, oh, this is a non-binary term, not talking about multiple people. And that's just, there's nothing obviously wrong with a non-binary person referring to themselves as they, them. It's literally just me and how I'm used to seeing a word, not necessarily how the word is allowed to be used. So that's a me problem, not a problem from the book. That one, like I said, I knew I wasn't really going to like it. I put it in 9th place. I don't know. That one and City We Became were they could be switched. And I disliked them for different reasons. I just thought The City We Became was so boring and flat. Like, the characters were so flat. So because I liked the characters better in this one, even if I didn't like the way the story was told, I went ahead and put that just slightly above The City We Became. But those could be swapped around. The final book that I have finished was, I finally finished my audiobook of Stormfront by Jim Butcher, which is the first book in the, oh my god, what is that series called? It is the first book in the Dresden Files, and I really don't like the private eye type of characters. It's a taste thing, I think, because I understand a lot of people love the Dresden Files, and it wasn't exactly like problematic content. It was more, I don't like the male savior character, where a private eye, literally, those stories exist to create a man who has a woman come to him and say, I'm having this issue, or I lost my husband, or I need you to save me in some way, and then he goes through and saves the day. And I personally just have like an entire distaste towards that type of character, which means I'm never going to like this book. This is private eye, but to make it fantasy, he's a wizard. So he's like a wizard for hire, but he acts a lot as a private eye. Like, he'll find things for you. And it's just, it's not for me. And I understand a lot of people love the Dresden Files, and I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that Jim Butcher is a bad writer, or the Dresden Files are problematic, or anybody should not read the Dresden Files. I am specifically saying that I don't like this type of character, and when that character is the main character in your book, it means that I am personally not going to like that book. So that one went to the very bottom of my list. So Stormfront is 11. There are 2 separate books nominated from the Dresden Files on this list. I'm obviously, if I don't like the character and I didn't like book number 1, then I'm not going to read to 14th and 15th. So Stormfront is going to count for both of those books, and it's going at the bottom of my list. So right now it's very, very lonely all by itself at 11th place. But it's not, it's me. It's me, it's not the book. If you like private eye type characters, then you'll probably really, really like this. And maybe it changes and gets a lot better throughout the series. I just don't personally have an interest right now in reading on. So if you've read the Dresden Files and this changes and it stops being like a male savior character, let me know down in the comments, and maybe it's like the first book is like this and then it gets a lot better when you go on, and then maybe I'll continue to read the Dresden Files later. But for right now, I'm just not feeling it. The next book that I am going to read is Once and Future Witches by Alex Harrow. And I should get that done this weekend. Hello, it is Sunday, so it's the end of the week, and I don't remember if in my last check-in I don't remember if in the last check-in I told you I was going to start Once and Future Witches by Alex Harrow. I did start it, and as I expected from how much I disliked her last book, I hate it. I read it for part of the day on Saturday and then realized that I kept like finding little excuses to put down a book. Like, you're not liking a book when you set down the book to go do dishes, because dishes sound like more fun than reading this damn book. So Saturday I got really mad and was like, I'm DNFing this, screw this stupid book. But now I've decided that I'm probably going to do what I normally do with books that I'm not really thrilled about, and I'll read it in small chunks over a lot of days. So the specific problem with this book is that I just don't think I like how Alex Harrow writes. The characters are very flat, very one-dimensional. They're basically all of the same person with like one like personality trait that makes them different. This basically is about three sisters who are witches in a universe that's basically our universe, except for witches are real, and they're still hated as much as they are, in the real world. This takes place in like the early 20th century, during the suffragette movement. So that was the 1910s, I think. 1920s? I'm going to say 1910s. But I could be wrong. Dates are hard. Anyway, it's like witches exist, and people can do small magic, but like major magic has been locked away in Avalon. Who would have thought? Avalon, of all places. And it's about like three sisters who, I guess the plot of the book is to bring back magic from Avalon. But the three sisters are the crone, the mother, and the maiden, which is, typical well-known witchy stuff. But that's their personality traits. It's like the crone is a timid old librarian, and the mother is very protective, but also feels like she fails everybody she tries to protect. And then the maiden is like impulsive and loud. But other than that, they're like all the same people, other than like that one individual trait between each girl. And even all the side characters, like all the women don't, and I mean, it's a book of women because all women are witches. They're all the same person with like just a tiny little difference in personality. And it's really annoying to read, really boring to read. Also, like the plot of it, like bringing back magic, like that should sound so interesting, but I'm so bored reading it. The most interesting, there's like one part of the book that is really interesting, and it has like interludes, and each interlude is a retelling of a very famous like fairy tale. We've had Sleeping Beauty and Rapunzel so far that I can remember. And those short little like retellings of those like major fairy tales are so interesting, and I love them. And if the entire book was just those, then I'd be like, this is great, I love this. But what I'm getting is not what I want to be getting. So I'm kind of just reading a chapter of that here and there. But if I don't finish it, whatever, I don't care. I hate the book. It's probably going to be at the bottom of my list unless it gets a hell of a lot more interesting really, really quickly. Outside of that, I did manage to read another book, which was The Bone Shard Daughter. And I don't remember the author, and I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry. It'll be up over here. This was way more interesting than I thought it would be. I liked it a lot, but I didn't, love it. The world building and the magic system, I think, didn't get explained enough in the first book for me to, be really, really thrilled about it. I'm still grasping on how all the characters interconnect and what the F is going on as far as the magic system. I don't even think I could explain it to you. It's such a complicated magic system, which is cool. I like complicated magic systems, but I don't think I can explain it to you. So I'm going to say that I liked it, but not loved it. So it moves up. It's taking a high spot in my list at 5th place, but it's not taking the top. So as my little chart here goes, I'm just going to do the top 10 unless one of the books that I throw in is outside of the top 10, because that's really all we care about, and I only have 2 outside, or I guess 3 if we count Witch and Future Witches. So first is House of Earth and Blood, then The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, then A Deadly Education, then House in the Cerulean Sea, and then we're adding The Bone Shard's Daughter in at 5th. Then those are the ones that I like. Those are the 5 that I would recommend easily that people should read. Then I'm getting into the ones, the next 3, The Poppy War, The City of Brass, and Piranesi, are ones that I don't really have a problem with. I like them well enough, but they're not oh my gosh, I really like this, you should read it, I liked it so much. Then with Black Sun, Black Sun and The Empress of Salt and Fortune, both of those fall into the I don't really know what's happening. I don't really remember what happened in this book. It's not really for me, but I could see other people really, really enjoying it. This is just things that are specifically not for me. Then The City We Became, again, that was another one with flat characters where they only had one specific personality trait, and I didn't like it for that reason. And then Stormfront, that just has the white male savior trope that I don't appreciate at all. And so that gives us 12 books down. Technically, Stormfront counts as 2, so I guess that's 13 out of the 20 that I need to read. So pretty decent chunk. We have less than 10 to go. I guess that's 7 left. And then, of course, I've started Once in Future Witches. I don't know if I'm going to finish it or not. I'm about 25% into it when I gave up on it. The second round of voting, the semifinals, where the first time we're introduced to all 20 nominated books, has just closed. And I want to say Tuesday the 17th is when the next phase opens, which is the finals, where it's just the top 10 books. So between now and then, I'm 100% going to read The Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson, because that comes out Tuesday. which is the 17th. So that's the one book that I know 100% for sure I'm going to read still, but I can't read it before it comes out. So, yeah. And then the priority after that is going to be anything that happens to be in the top 10 that I didn't read. And I really, 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 really think that I've nailed down the top 10 from what I've read. I don't think anything left is going to be in the top 10, but I could be surprised. I mean, excluding Rhythm of War. But obviously can't read that for obvious reasons. Anyway, other books that I've read, which you might have seen a little bit of them from the stack. This is what I've read outside of my Goodreads for this week. The Lies of Loch Lamora by Scott Lynch. I finished this up. I think I might have mentioned in the last vlog that I had started it, but I did finish it. Then I read Oryx and Crake by Margaret Atwood. After that, I read Dawn Shard by Brandon Sanderson. That was a novella that happens between Oathbringer and Rhythm of War. So I wanted to... It just released to people who backed a Kickstarter, so I wanted to read it before Rhythm of War came out. After that, I read Matched by Ali Condi. And then, the last one was The Dark Mirror by Juliet Marillier, I think. So, all of that is what I read this week. That's like a lot. I read a lot of pages this week. And I think I'm going to read even more next week because, you know, Rhythm of War is 1,200 pages. So that's going to be a huge chunk. I have 4 books left to go in my Century Challenge, and then 7 left to go, if I'm mathing correctly, which I could be completely wrong. If I am, I'm sure I would have put something over here that says, hey, you're an idiot. This is actually how many books you have left to go. But I think I have 7 left to go to get through all 20 of the Goodreads Choice Awards. So I feel like I can actually do this because I have till December 8th and it's only the 15th of November. But yeah, I really think that I could definitely do this at this point. I was scared for a while and like that seems like a whole lot of books and a lot of pages. And a lot of the books that I have left have a lot of pages. But knowing that I'm more than halfway through the month and then I have like a few days into the month. I have 8 days into December where I can like catch up on anything that I don't read this month. Makes me a lot more confident in my ability to like get all of this done on time. So I'm gonna cut it there and see you next week in next week's vlog. Later.